Hello and welcome to the Feet on the Soil podcast, the podcast about the world beneath our feet and how we interact with it. We're back again with another guest episode, and I have to say, I really enjoyed this conversation. This week I met with Dr. Kamila Kwasniewska. Kamila is the founder and owner of Nature to Go, a group that brings people out for forest bathing and nature immersion events. But that's only really the start of the story. Kamila is a PhD holder and has done research in lichen as air quality indicators, has studied the effects of climate on plants. On top of all that, has of course been accredited as a forest bathing guide. Forest bathing is something that really came onto my radar only very recently, and myself and Kamila get into a little bit of why that might be. And if forest bathing isn't something you're familiar with, I'm going to leave it up to the expert to explain that in the episode. Myself and Kamila met out in the Vale of Clara, a place that holds particular significance to herself and is a place that I had never visited. As with a lot of these recordings, something very special happened before. I got the bus from Dublin all the way down to Ashford in County Wicklow, and it was a beautiful bus ride, going through different fields and beautiful laneways. It wasn't that kind of typical bus ride of main roads and motorways. We were coming along a large kind of arable field, and I could see behind it the ocean, and as I looked up I could see two huge silhouettes, these big huge birds of prey. And I had been kind of looking on the lampposts because I know that along that road you can see buzzards kind of lazily waiting on the lampposts as you drive by, but these were far too big to be buzzards. And as I kind of scanned their silhouette, I could see the forked tail on the back of them. Immediately getting a little bit of excitement, I realised that this was two red kites. Even though I live in Wicklow, or just outside it, and I'm kind of in that zone where the red kites have been reintroduced into Ireland, this was my first time seeing them, and I have to say it was really quite exciting. So when I met Kamila in Ashford, I was already on a bit of a high. As we drove to the Vale of Clara, Kamila was telling me different things about her research in Trinity and the experiences she's had doing forest bathing with different people. Of course we'll get more deeper into it in the episode, but she told me about the effects that forest bathing has on people, how incredible it can be. Just 2 or 3 hours a week can really change a person. And what I found interesting was, because of her scientific background, she was able to prove why this was beneficial. She was able to tell me how different soil bacteria can affect mood, and how the colours and even just the quality of the air have such a huge impact on mental and physical health. Upon entering the Vale, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. The car park couldn't hold more than, I'd say, 10 cars, and it was completely empty when we arrived. We walked down a forest path and past beautiful trees, old oaks and Scots pine and huge stands of birch covered in moss, before entering into an area that Kamila had a particular affection for. It was a large, open, almost meadow, dotted with oak trees, and as I looked behind us, very fittingly, there was either a sicko or a fallow deer just grazing in the grasses. We sat on a log and recorded the conversation you're about to hear, so I really hope you enjoy it. But before we get into it, I just wanted to say an enormous thank you for the response to the last episode. I've had a passion for learning about Glenasmole and all the stories in it for quite a long time, and was almost a little bit nervous to share it just because I didn't think people would be too interested. But I ended up having a fantastic response. I had people reaching out to me from all around the country saying how they now had a bit of an interest in Glenasmole. But I wanted to say a special thank you to the people of Glenasmole. The podcast, I didn't mean for it to happen, but it lined up pretty well with a yearly event which I really love, which is the Kinnaird Crossroad Ceilidh. It must be the last Crossroad Ceilidh in Dublin, but every year we all go up, there's a bit of hay spread on the streets, someone's making a barbecue, and everyone brings their own bottle, while some trad music plays and eventually a little bit of DJing. And while I was up there, I had a good few people come up to me and tell me how they enjoyed the podcast. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody, and I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Kamila. Thank you for having me. So nature has really been close to me, and I was very lucky to be close to nature in a way. So I grew up close to forest, and I was spending most of my childhood really in the forest. So playing in the forest with other kids, going for mushroom hunts, during the weekend. So this was kind of our, thing to do with my mom and my older sister. So I think I had this connection to nature since childhood, and it kind of continued because I was studying biology and botany, and then I did my PhD in plant science as well. And I was very, very lucky to move from Dublin to this beautiful area in Wicklow and be, close by this nature reserve here. And once I discovered it, I thought, okay, I'm just very, very lucky to be close by. So I will come here and I will sit around and walk with my dogs. And this is, I think, how I got here, how I discovered this beautiful piece of Ireland.
And like you said, you've come at it kind of the environment and environmentalism from a sort of a scientific background. So you originally studying biology, and then you went into you're finished a PhD now, are you, or you're working on?
Oh yes, I finished my PhD
Yeah.
a long time ago already. Yes, I'm working as a postdoc in botany in Trinity College. In plant climate interaction lab.
So I found it very interesting looking into that you would kind of such a scientific background in the way that you're thinking about nature and interacting with it. But the way that I kind of found you or came across you on Instagram was that you were doing forest bathing and nature immersion. So sort of the more, while it is still definitely scientifically backed, like there's a bit more of that spirituality or sort of connection to the land as well. How was it that you got, or I suppose before we ask about how you got into forest bathing, could you explain what forest bathing is for if someone didn't know?
Oh yes, of course. So forest bathing comes from Japan, and it's called Shinrin-yoku, and it really translates into immersing your senses in the atmosphere of the forest. So really trying to activate your senses, be slower than usual, so slowing down, being mindful of what is happening in your body, so what you discover in your body and what you discover around you as well. And forest bathing in Vale of Clara is really beneficial just because there's plenty of biodiversity here. So on our walk here, we just saw beautiful deer. We hear a lot of birds just in the background, and beautiful forests, semi-native forests here. So a lot of oaks, a lot of birches, beautiful ferns. I mean, if you could actually see it, what we see now when we sit here on the fallen tree, you would be amazed as well. So forest bathing in a way is this kind of, how I would really describe it, it's kind of like a mindfulness meditation outdoors, and it can take 2-3 hours really to actually get you to the point where you feel, okay, I feel really relaxed now. I notice nature. I kind of feel this connection to nature as well, just because you're slowing down and you have this time. You take time to notice things around you. This is really giving you a lot of energy back, and I think it's quite beneficial from what I see from people that are experiencing it. It's quite beneficial for them. All of the groups, all people giving me really great feedback at the end of the session that they are just rejuvenated in a way. Yeah. Such a weird way, It's just walking in the forest, but slowly. And what it's quite different than what you would do during your usual walk is it's mostly silent. So you just take your time to really regenerate your nervous system in a way to notice things rather than chat, with other people. So it's a good way to slow down.
And how did you find out about it, or was there an experience that made you think like, oh, this is something that I really want to get involved in and kind of dedicate a part of my life to?
So, well, I think you might laugh at that, but when I was a child, we would go to the forest, which was really close to my house, like 200 meters. And we would just spend time, just sit under the tree. So this was what my mom was telling me, just sit under the tree to kind of relax and enjoy this environment. And we would walk around, pick mushrooms. So picking mushrooms is also very meditative in a way. And this was kind of my, I think, like kind of first experience of forest bathing in a way, that you would kind of, you might call it like that. But years after, I came across Shinrin Yoku forest bathing book, and I started to lean towards the science of it. So really, going through the research that was also shown in this book. And since I moved from Dublin to Wicklow and discovered this beautiful place, I thought, oh, this would be something I would be very interested in really leading people towards this experience, right? So I finished a course of forest bathing guide that took a few months, and then I did training with different groups, with family, friends. They gave me feedback, and yeah, I was kind of good to go, bringing people to forest, and really what is beneficial also for me is this energy after people are actually experiencing this kind of connection to nature and coming back and saying that was something they have never experienced. So it gives me a lot of joy as well, at the end of the session. So that's lovely feeling.
I suppose the main thing is that you're silent while you're doing it. It's not that you're going out, which still has its benefits, but you're not going out for like a chat with your friends in the forest. And then it's also different from a hike because you don't specifically have a destination. Like the whole thing is just to be in nature for that extended period of time.
That's it. Yes. So I very much encourage people to try a silent walk. It can be difficult because we are used to talking to others,
and no headphones on as well.
No headphones, and I encourage people to switch off their phones as well, which is also very, very important. So, and during this experience, people trying that because they're like, okay, let's try. And as you said, it's not it's not a hike where we go to the top of the mountain and we kind of go fast and hike fast, who's there the first. It's just spending time in forest. Rather, walking long distances is quite it's much slower in a way. It's much slower. Also, we slow our walk during this experience, so this is also difficult for people to do at the beginning. But after some time, I can actually see that people are into it, and they're like getting relaxed in a way.
And in general, with the people who are coming along to kind of engage with this, would they be people who already have an interest in nature and who are already maybe doing nature bathing in a certain way, or would you get many people who are kind of completely new to this and this is something that they're trying for the first time?
There is a mix, I would say. Some people are here because they love nature and they want to be in nature, but some people are coming and they saying that they wanted to try because they've heard about forest bathing and they don't know what to expect, but they wanted to try. So I guess because forest bathing is now getting some attention, maybe the name is not great because it's not really translating the actual thing that you do. You're not taking a bath in a lake or in the river, in the forest. It's just kind of like a sound bath in a way, right? So it's bathing your senses in this atmosphere of the forest. But I think some people are actually looking to switch off and to get out of the city. This is what I get as well. Some people are to try it as a therapy. in a way. I had a few people coming. They said it was for them. It was very beneficial for grief therapy.
Okay.
So that was something that was very emotional for me as well to hear that. But it's like a deeper sense in a way. So some people come in just to kind of relax and see the lovely surrounding, but some people really find this spirituality in a way that connecting to nature can help them to go through something difficult in their lives.
I suppose, like you said, you had people who were using this to deal with grief or to deal with negative parts of their life. Would you have people who return, who are, this becomes like a big part of their life and something that they frequently do?
Yes. There are few people that are coming back, and they're coming back to different locations, because I do forest bathing here. I also do like a urban forest bathing in Dublin, in Trinity College Botanic Gardens, where I also teach ikebana. So this is Japanese style of arranging flowers. So it's like a art, very mindful as well, peaceful, minimalistic way of just creating something and getting into senses as well. So people are coming back to different experiences. So that's really great to see that, and they bring friends with them as well. So that's lovely to experience as well.
Kind of bringing the forest bathing into more urban spaces like the Trinity Botanic Gardens, and even it's not like we're a million miles from Dublin city centre while we're here. I was looking into forest bathing and kind of its origins, and like you said, it's a Japanese practice that came around because there was this epidemic of stress and overworking as Japan developed really, really quickly. And when I was reading it, it was so reflective of Ireland now, in that in the space of 30 years Ireland went from a very agricultural, outdoors connected nation to really quickly developing into a lot of office working, a lot of sort of computer-based work, and I feel like people are really crying out to engage with nature again. We were talking on the car over about how kind of quick the rise of forest bathing has been in Ireland, but you were saying that it's already kind of popular in continental Europe.
Yes, that's true. So I think in Europe, because it's everything is kind of together and each country is getting ideas from another one, so Ireland is getting it finally. So few years, that's true. So 2-3 years since forest bathing actually got this the name in media in a way. So it's great to see that, because I think it gives people in this modern world, I think you have to kind of name the experience, or hand people something so that they actually consider it in a way. So this is just my kind of thinking. Instead of, maybe this is what you said. Maybe this is the part of our very busy schedules and very busy lives, and we kind of have to kind of schedule things now. We have to schedule. Okay, let's go to this forest and do something, or we have to schedule, our exercise rather than just doing it all the time, right? So I think it's the matter of our modern life in a way, and when you have a name to it and you see people are doing it, I think it's it's kind of catchy in a way, right? So
trendy.
But on the other side, it's good that it came here. This is due to our lack of or disconnection to nature. Really, there's beautiful study from a few years ago from researchers in UK showing our nature connection. So really, our relationship with nature is very highly correlated to our well-being. The more connected to nature we are, the better our kind of overall well-being is, right? And Ireland is not really doing great at this point. So
I think you could safely say
that's
that.
it. Yeah. So they've looked at 14 countries, European countries, and looked at the level of nature connection, level of biodiversity in the country, and level of well-being. And Ireland is unfortunately at the bottom together with UK.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that's
not shocked to hear
that's
it
it.
at all.
Yes, that's it. Italy is the first. I mean, they have beautiful huge amount of biodiversity, different national parks, and they're really great at preserving their wildlife, and their nature connection level is higher, I guess, because there is nature to go to, right? So nature is there, so you can actually go outside and be in nature. Where comparing to Ireland, not that much nature around, right? So we have only, what is it, 2% of native forests? Not really even 2%, but something like that. And the rest, which is 9%, are the commercial forests.
Which, again, as we were driving over, of course we were driving through beautiful areas where the trees were hanging over the road, and you could see that kind of, that biodiversity was nearly like bursting out. But then we were having that conversation of you chat to people who might not be too engaged with environmentalism or kind of how Ireland is doing on a world scale, and they say, but your Ireland's so green. Like you can't drive anywhere without seeing fields
Green.
and trees. But it's
Yes.
it's a different green. So what you were
Yes.
saying is that it's not just the amount of nature, it's about the amount of biodiversity in that nature.
Yes,
That's the
it.
important
Yes,
thing.
exactly. Because if you look at our landscape, you mostly see fields, right? And on the fields, not so many things are happening, really. They're mostly overgrazed fields, and just, not so many flowers, not so many shrubs, not so many trees. And this is really what we need for the biodiversity to flourish. So if we don't have plants, we won't have animals. That's, everything is really connected in that matter. We can be green in a way that the color is, the color green is around us. That's amazing. But the most biodiverse areas are actually native forest, where you have the growth of beautiful trees, but also underground. Most of our biodiversity is also in the soil, right? So soil is quite important in this aspect, and how we treat our soils. If we leave them organic, it's great, but if we don't, this is how we also kill our biodiversity. So that's it.
Yeah, it's actually something that I'm very interested in, but haven't spoken too much about on like kind of online platforms, about the importance of soil and soil microbiology, and just how incredible that connection is. I mean, I think, fungi is having a little bit of a moment at the moment where everybody seems to be starting to get interested in it, but I mean, for good reason. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if it's something that you're too kind of interested in or anything, but I do a lot of barefoot running, and did a lot of interesting looking into the kind of grounding. And the phenomenon of how your kind of, even if it is your skin microbiome, how that interacts with a healthy soil microbiome, and then got further into that with how the microbiome of the soil impacts the food and the mineral content of food. Have you had people come to the forest bathing barefoot? And I mean, even just that interaction of touching the trees as you're going by, or running your hand through the grasses, do you think that physical element of interacting with nature, I suppose, do you think that the biodiversity of an area impacts that?
Oh yes, that's of course it has to. So definitely, if, for example, if you look at the tree just in front of us, there is so much moss growing on it, right? And there's also a lot of fern on the top. If you notice that, there's fern. And I actually also see lichen as well. So I think if you don't get that, and you only get, the bark, just just a regular bark on the tree, the experience will be different, because activating your senses in that way, in that matter. And I do encourage people to touch the tree. and they're amazed about the texture. And I think we very often forget about our sense of touch. We don't really touch, natural things anymore so often. And I sometimes ask people if they want to take off their shoes if the weather is great.
It's not too nice on a rainy day
no,
sometimes.
but it is beneficial to take off your shoes and just stand on the grass for a while, just to kind of get into the sense of, okay, I'm kind of connecting to what's surrounded, so connecting to the area around me. And going back to your point on the microbes, there's actually, well, I'm going to back it up with research here.
Thank God, because I've just been saying it.
Yes, there's very interesting research about bacteria, the bacteria that lives in the soil. Now, I don't remember the name exactly, but the research, what they've looked at is, when you, for example, gardening, when you're digging the soil, this bacteria is present in the soil. And they isolated this bacteria from the soil and looked at, I think it was cancer patients. They looked at their behavior. They gave them these bacteria, and those who got the bacteria, it didn't cure cancer. It wasn't about that. It was just about kind of being more content and more happy in a way. So it's kind of, so what they were suggesting is that the bacteria might have some influence on your mood.
Wow.
Yes.
And so that in those kind of moments where you're, not interrupted by shoes or, the fear of hugging a tree or brushing your hand along
getting dirty, right?
Yes. You actually are genuinely
happy.
having an impact on your mood.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, just think about when you're a child, right? So kids tend to have a higher nature connection levels to kind of adults in 20s, 30s, younger adults. When you were a child, you kind of, you were so natural, right? You were digging and looking at, trying to find, right? Yeah, I did the same. I was climbing trees as well. Loved it. And then we kind of, get into society, and it's all about work, getting I don't know, get house or
the hustle culture.
whatever your needs are, you get after that, and you kind of forget about those simple things in your life, those moments that you just take time to notice or sit and observe. I think it's quite unusual for child to be so unnatural in a way that they are not connected to nature. They just kind of tend to have this natural vibe in a way. So it's good sometimes to go back to to those memories of how you behaved as a child and what gave you joy in a way. Being outdoors, for me, that was something that I really loved to do. And walking, hiking, going for quick walks around, or just staying in the forest for hours. It's something that is so simple but can really bring you just joy. That's it.
It's interesting that you were saying about that, because the person that kind of got me into the barefoot running and I learned a lot from was a guy called Tony Riddle, who does a lot of he goes by the natural lifestylist on Instagram, and he talks a lot about natural ways of living that you can kind of incorporate into like modern lifestyles. And he started changing his language from, he was talking a lot about like rewilding the posture or rewilding the diet, and he started changing his language over to rechilding. So kind of getting back in contact with
childhood.
Because I remember being a kid, and like my favorite thing to do was like build like mud castles, which was just dig loads of mud up, get it soaking wet, and then just build a pile out of it.
That's it.
But in doing that, I remember doing it in my nanny's house and finding a tooth and probably like a cow tooth or,
okay.
you know, some sort of farm animal, but
Yes.
being like, oh my God, now I'm an
Yes.
archaeologist.
Yes, of
Or
course.
doing it and finding worms, and now you're a soil biologist.
Yes.
Or, you know, all of these things, you were doing them just for fun and to play, but you were learning so much from it.
Mhm.
And it didn't have to be this hugely like scientific thing where I didn't go into the house then and pull out the science books to find out exactly what animal tooth I
Mhm.
had. I was
Right.
just fascinated by
Mhm.
the thing in my hand.
Yes.
And I suppose the thing I wanted to ask you was, as we've said, you've got this background in science,
Mhm.
and you know, we were actually talking about lichens just before, and you were saying you used to know all the Latin names, and
Yes,
it's
yeah.
very easy when you're out here to start saying, you know, oh, there's a birch tree. I wonder if it's downy
Mhm.
birch or if it's, do you know, or like
Yes,
the
yeah.
the example that Adam used on the podcast, where you know, is it Quercus pedunculus, or
Yes.
like coming for the forest bathing. I suppose the thing you're trying to do is to be as just in the moment as possible,
Mhm.
and not be trying to come in with that science eye, and
Yes.
coming in with that soft eye. Have you found it difficult to kind of come in and disregard, or not disregard, but just set aside for a moment the the
The
scientist's
science
eye?
is okay. Yes.
Has that been something that you struggled with, or is that something that came kind of natural?
I don't think it was difficult in a way. So yes, I am curious about, you know, what is this bird, you know, it's just somewhere in the background. But I think while I was training to kind of to become the forest bathing guide, it also really broadened my view towards, you know, apart from scientific backgrounds and how forest bathing is actually beneficial for you, right? So there's a lot of studies about stress levels going down, your pulse rate is going down, so you're getting really better sleep after the session, etc. So I was looking through that, and I'm trying to say that to people that, you know, it's great for you. But taking or putting the science bits aside, I think I really also learned that, you know, in a way that there's just more to forest or the surrounding of the forest than, you know, the scientific bits and pieces that that are in my head. And I kind of, in a way, I kind of look through this through maybe glasses, in a way that allowing me just to kind of observe what is rather than name it. And well, I'm still getting curious about it, right? I'm still curious about how this moss is growing on this tree. So how is this happening? But I'm not engaging in discovery in a way that I'm, you know, trying to figure out and analyze and go back to literature. You know, it's just more of curiosity of a child in a way. And I find this is also how people that come into those sessions, they are curious about what is this plant, what is this fern, what is it called, what is this grass, is it a grass, or what type of, does it have a Latin name? So people are interested, and of course I give information, of course. It's just that I'm not encouraging them to know all the names. Is you know, it's not necessary for this session. That's a different type of session that we can, you know, discuss it about names and types of trees. However, so just kind of coming back to your, I'm kind of, you know, answering and thinking, I don't think it was very difficult for me just to be surrounded by forest and not kind of, you know, engaging in science of it and thinking about science. Is just maybe because I was exposed for such a long time, you know.
That's what I was going to say. Are you kind of going back to that child who was sat in the forest?
That could be it. So I think might be beneficial, you know, to bring children. Forest school might be something that is beneficial and
make sure that they have that template there to kind of come back to.
And you know, future generations will really be so comfortable around trees that they would love to have them all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which is, I suppose, again, something that we were talking about on the way in was during the pandemic, there was obviously a lot more human interaction with the landscape.
That's it.
And some people, the kind of things that would annoy some people, but it wasn't through bad intention or anything, but, you know, people coming out and littering became a more frequent thing. Dogs off leash in areas where they shouldn't be. It's just people don't have the template. They haven't
That's
interacted
it.
with nature enough.
Yes.
And like you said about forest schools, do you have young people coming along to the forest bathing, or is it mostly adults? If you do, have you seen a difference in the way they interact with the landscape?
So for a few years now, I had only adults coming to forest bathing sessions. However, actually this week I'm starting work with children age 6 to 12. They are part of a summer camp. And they come in for one day to Vale of Clara. So I will be able to answer that, you know, after a month of work with different groups. But I think they might be surprised. You know, so most of the kids, I think they're based in the city, in Dublin. So when they come here, they might be surprised to see what kind of real forest looks like, right? So I might get back to you on that.
I'd be interested to hear it, because we've had some guests in the past now that have worked in nature education with both kids and adults. And the one thing that we've kind of talked about and found so interesting is that the kids but like they don't have that fear to go up and touch the moss that's on the side of the tree, or to really get in close to that little shield bug where you know, it might be in amongst the bracken and an adult might say, oh God, I don't want to get my shoes dirty. But that kid is going to sprint in there, see what bug it is. I'd be interested to see now if you see that same, I suppose, calming effect on the children. They're like, you know, they're so...
that's a good point. I'm you know, getting the session together now for them. And of course, for kids, you have to be a little bit more entertaining in a way, right? To get their attention. But I think they might be, you know, very tired after the session.
The parents will be happy with that.
So it will be definitely calming effect, because I mean, look at the green space that we're in, and we are super lucky because we have beautiful sun also and blue sky. So
not too common that you see this.
Yes, right. And those two colors are also very beneficial for us. It's been shown that both of those colors, so you know, if you're in the forest, these are colors are calming our nervous system down. So
this is the green and what
and blue.
Green, blue, okay.
So the mixture of those two.
And I suppose, like, you're walking around town, you're not seeing that much green. You might see a bit of blue on a car going past.
No, you're not seeing the the green from the leaves is the most kind of important, and not too many trees around the city, right? No. So it is just concrete and grey. If you're lucky, you'll see the blue sky, you know. Not too much in Ireland. That's it. Yeah. If you have time to go to the park, Phoenix Park, go ahead. But other than that, it's quite grey.
And I suppose that kind of leads into something that we touched on a little bit earlier, which was the lack of native forestry, or even something that we're in at the moment, that's sort of semi-native forestry in Ireland. There is definitely a movement now to increase that. You've got different, you know, tree replanting organizations. People are starting to talk about it, which I mean is different from even a few years ago. One thing that I was very interested in when I was kind of looking into what you do, the forest bathing, the nature immersion, was thinking that the more accessible this becomes, like you've been talking about the proven benefits, the colour of green and blue that kind of settles our nervous system, the reduction in heart rate and blood pressure when you're out in nature, and all of these benefits. The more of this forestry we have, the more accessible it becomes, the more healthy and well the population is.
Yes.
Do you think that in a future where more native forestry is close to people, that this will become a kind of a generally accepted thing across the population, and then in turn, kind of what would you see as the benefits of that, to have this accessible to everybody?
So I think there are a few aspects of that. So the first thing, yes, are these, private lands or people that are into planting native forests, will these lands be accessible to the public, right? So this is one thing to kind of think of. I think the system that we have in Ireland needs to change a little bit. So rather than planting only non-native Sitka, we should also plant our native forest back and give it back to people. I mean, these are lands for people, right? So we kind of, in a way, own the lands, and we are owners in a way of the forest. And if you look at the native or semi-native forest, right, a place where we are at the moment, and you look at Sitka plantations, a huge difference. I mean, here we have more light, we have beautiful biodiversity, different even shapes of trees, different colors of leaves. And if you go into Sitka plantation, you don't have that. It's very dark. It's quite depressing in a way,
scary.
right? Scary.
From a horror film.
That's it. And everything is kind of planted in rows, and very often then half of it is cut and timbers kind of laying. It looks like a cemetery in a way.
Yeah, and people think that that's what forestry is.
Yeah, I mean it's forestry. It's like agriculture, right? Yeah. It's growing trees for timber. I mean, of course, we need timber. We need building materials. However, some of the land could be probably just treated in a little bit different way. So we probably need a better understanding of how we can actually get different lands transformed into native forests. It will take time to grow, right?
Of course,
but for future generations, that's very important, especially with the biodiversity loss, across the globe.
But if it was accessible, if everybody had access to a place like this,
yes,
what do you think the benefits? If everybody in Ireland was doing, say, 2 hours a week of forest bathing, how different do you think the world would be?
Well, another aspect, this is what I wanted to say and I forgot, what is really not helping us a lot or really disturbing us to connect with nature is unfortunately technology. So smartphone usage is one of the biggest problems in a way, right? So when I see people, for example, walking in the forest, not even this one, they're on their phones, right? So this is really not what we aiming for during forest bathing.
You don't want to be on Instagram.
No, you don't want to be on Instagram. You want to be present. So I think this is the issue as well, where again, people have to kind of schedule the present moment into their lives, because we're on technology. All of us, we are, right? And this is part of our lives. However, it would be a good thing to just really switch off your phone, or even leave your phone at home. Would you really need it in the forest? No, not that much. And to go back to your question, how would people change, right, after just spending time, like mindful time in nature?
If this was the standard, if everybody was practicing this.
Oh gosh, that would be amazing. I think less aggression. People will be really relaxed and finally got into realization that they are part of nature, that they are belonging to nature in a way, right? So not, disconnecting with like, okay, I live in the city, so I'm not really part of the nature. I mean, if you think about how long the life on earth actually exists, and then we're coming in, at this tiny very second of the earth,
Blink of an eye.
yes, life cycle in a way, right? It's just astonishing that there's something that was here before us, and it's gonna be here after we're not, on earth anymore, and we're part of it for a second in a way. And I think this would be kind of beneficial for people to discover that, this is us, this is where we belong, and more respect for nature, maybe, then people, if people get into nature and notice how beautiful it is, how restorative it is, they might then think, okay, maybe I want this to last longer, for generations, for my kids, for my grandchildren. Let's just, preserve another bit of another forest, or let's plant more trees around us. So it would be very beneficial, apart from all these, physiological aspects, getting
just being healthier.
Getting really healthy and relaxed in a way. So that's it, I think.
So I'm going to ask one more question, and again, this is a question that we ask every episode. At the moment, what is your favorite place in nature? And it can be, I always say to people, it can be as specific as you can give us geographic coordinates,
Okay.
or it can just be an ecosystem, so the ocean, the forest, the desert, anything.
Okay,
So
perfect. Yeah, I'll give you two actually. So my favorite spot at the moment in Ireland is where we sit. So Vale of Clara, a nature reserve, County Wicklow. It's just something that every time I come in, it looks different. Every time I'm here, I meet different animals, and it's still kind of gets me, chills. So it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And there is another part of the world, on the border of Poland and Slovakia, Tatra Mountains. So these are mountains that I love to go back to, and very wild still, with a lot of wildlife, bears, wolves, and
none of them in Clara.
yeah, none of them, no, none of them here. But it's just, I think part of my soul is kind of there, and I'm always looking forward to go back and hike some of the parts of the mountains there.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank
and
you
then,
so much.
as we've said throughout, you do lead these kind of forest bathing sessions and different nature immersion things. Where can people find tickets or information for that?
Yes, so I run sessions usually during the weekends, and people can find tickets on naturetogo.ie, or follow me on Instagram, the same name, or Facebook as well. Perfect.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for everybody who listened. And if you can, try and get outside today.